So I've taken time to come in and redelineate this in pen to make it a little darker and more permanent. I've also taken some time to go back and further erase some construction lines that were still visible. Now what I'm going to do is decide how to tonal shade. Now you can tonal shade with the same cross-hatching type of tonal shading as we've done with Activity 2.1 isometrics. Or if you're confident, competent, and had permission to move on beyond that, you can tonal shade using just pressure, which is what I'm going to demonstrate today. I'll have to decide what faces get what tonal shading layers. Even if I were doing the cross-hatching, I'd have to make that decision. Tops with cross-hatching, I'd leave as blank. So this face and this one, I'd have 0 layers. For the left side faces, I could decide either that I would have height lines or depth lines if I were doing cross-hatching, or I could have 3 layers on there and have all height, width, and depth lines. Anytime that I would have depth lines drawn in with tonal shading, I would bring them all the way back to the vanishing point, and they would not be parallel lines, and they would be angled, as you potentially saw in my original video for these, where I laid out some basic directions. The front faces would either get height or width, unless of course I chose for those to have 3 layers. Now, I'll do the pressure shading, so what I'm going to say is that my top is the lightest. The light source is more in front than it is on the left, so the left will get the darkest, and the front will get somewhere in between what I have on the top and what I have on the right. So a little bit of layering. Now, I'm going to turn my paper to the side because I'm right-handed, and therefore I can easily access the drawing from the top of the paper. Now, I'm going to apply a very light base coat. I'm going to hold my pencil way back here so that I can move it in circles as needed. And I'm going to draw little circles as I use the side of my pencil lead to lay down a very light base. Drawing it with circles allows me to cover a fairly decent amount of space in a short amount of time, and keeps my overlap from creating this kind of gradation or line where my pencil lead has already been. It makes for it to look a little more smooth. It doesn't create the lines that I would with cross-hatching. As I use this side of my pencil lead, it wears it down a little bit, making it a little more flat, and that can be useful for what I'm currently doing. However, if you feel the need to slightly rotate your pencil, it will make for a more abrasive or hard line when doing this type of shading. And sometimes it's needed, as it'll wear down the pencil lead to the point where it's the wood of the pencil touching. If you're using a mechanical pencil, it can wear a real flat spot on your mechanical pencil lead, which for some people they use to their advantage. I'm not too worried about crossing the lines or going outside of my object. I can always erase those. And when I cross over the lines, it's okay because I'm going to cross over them anyway. I want to be careful that I don't get this weird blending right here. That does happen from rotating my pencil over and getting that harsh edge, and it also can happen if I go too straight with these lines in less of a circular shape. This does take some practice and some time to get it right. Alright, so I have this very base layer. I can go in and clean some of this up if I feel the need to do so. That is completely on you, however. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is consider that that's my lightest face. So I'm not going to really hit them up too much more, if at all. What I am going to do is work on the fronts and left sides, applying just a little bit more of a layering to them. Just going a little darker. And since the light source is up high, then down low, I'll make it even darker on the fronts and left sides. So as I go down, I'll get even darker. And I can always come back and add more layering to it to help with that. In the corner, I'll want it to be darkest. That's a technique that you may or may not be comfortable with just yet. As I come back up, I'll blend it back into being lighter. It can also help is if once I'm done with my next layering, I come in and apply a layer in a different direction. It'll help keep any striation or gradation from happening that I don't want. So I'll come in and go this direction now. I'll come back to the left face, make it just a little darker, especially here in this corner. Maybe my light source is more towards the front than the left, so this corner should appear probably the darkest, as well as this corner back here, especially down towards the bottom. A little more pressure, slight change in direction. Now, I can clean up some of the pencil work. Using an eraser shield here might help. And you want to be careful once you have all of this pencil lead on your paper that you try not to touch the lead too much with your pinky as you swipe across, or with your fingers you try to wipe away any erasing mess that you might have. Now this particular area is my darkest area, and as you will see, it appears to have the most shadow. Now, what some students like to do is overshade or provide too much of a shadow, and that can be an issue. If you have a kneadable eraser, you can pick up some of that lead, but that is something that you would have to provide on your own. Another thing that might help with this is using a Q-tip or cotton swab to try and pick up some of the lead and spread it or smear it without it getting on your finger and creating a lot of debris that's been spread across the page. You'll notice this bit of a stridation right here. If I can avoid that, I'd like to. Now, that can be something that you take care of by darkening the areas around it slightly, but you want to be careful that you don't darken it in so much that it looks too dark for that particular face. I can also find that the cotton swab might help with this particular area as well. So if I take my cotton swab, I use it to gently make circular strokes. You'll see that it is picking up the pencil lead slightly and therefore spreading it. Now, that is a different technique than using your finger, but it's similar. It helps get rid of some of the, I guess what you could refer to as strokes of your pencil, and smooth it out. It can change the texture, look of the object as well. Careful with the tops. I don't want too much to spread to these. And then I would be finished with this sketch.